the first person in our series is Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. And so tonight we have Ms. Ana Navarro. And on October 27th, we will have Mr. Charles Blow. And then on November 3rd, Dennis Rodman will conclude our series. So we're excited that you chose to come out and spend the evening at the library. We have two very distinguished guests tonight. Our first distinguished guest is Miss Yesenia Taveras. She's Wilmington's own. She's the director of legislative and public affairs for the city of Wilmington. She's an award-winning journalist. She will be moderating the conversation with Miss Navarro. And of course, you know who Miss Navarro is. She's a political analyst on The View, Telemundo, CNN. And what prompted this invitation is that we try to offer unique voices at the library. Miss Navarro is unique in that she's respected by both sides of the political spectrum. Democrats and Republicans alike respect her. We're in an era of history to where our political discourse only permits us to choose a side. And so she's an anomaly in that you don't know what side she's on sometimes. So it's nice to have somebody it's nice to offer a voice that tends to look at the pros and cons on either side of the public discourse and the political spectrum. So we hope that you enjoy the conversation tonight. We will have a 30 to 40 minute conversation with her, and then we will turn it over and allow you to ask Ms. Navarro anything that you'd like to ask her. The role of the library is, this is small little Wilmington. It's our responsibility to serve as your innovative and inviting link to the world. So we're bringing the world to our great city today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests, Ms. Yesenia Taveras and Ms. Ana Navarro.
You know what? You're so right. Oh, yeah. Even though I think that's the stage is not but I'm gonna put it over there because you're so right. You gotta be very loyal to superstition. Yep. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be out of my house. Spent, like most of us, 18 months in Miami, cooking and drinking and getting fat. And my husband's a lawyer, and he's spending a lot of time at home still because people don't want to go to meetings anymore. They want to do everything through Zoom. And so since he's not getting out of the house, I am. But thank you for being here. I'm thrilled to be here. And I told Yesenia she can ask me anything she wants, and you can ask me anything you want. So no topics off limit for me, except my weight, for which I used to blame Donald Trump, and now I blame COVID. I don't know who else to blame these days. Maybe I should blame Don Julio. So, vamos.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We are truly grateful for you to be here in Delaware. Well, before we get into the wonderful things that you're doing, I want to take it back to your humble beginnings. Share with us a little bit about your background and your family and growing up in Nicaragua.
Well, I was born in Nicaragua in a little agricultural town called Chinandega, and I had really a wonderful childhood. I had a gilded childhood for a few years there. I'm lucky in that I have parents who loved me unconditionally, and I didn't realize, really, I didn't realize until somewhat late in life that that's not the case for everyone, right? And sometimes I would post about my parents, and so it's something that really is a blessing when you have the type of parents that I had. There was a civil war, there was a revolution, and my family fled in 1980, settled in the United States, or actually in Miami, but that's close to the United States. Um, and I think, like most political exiles, when you flee your country, you think, oh, this is going to be a short time. It's next year in Havana, next year in Havana. I've heard my Cuban American friends say that for as long as I've lived in Miami, and I've been there 41 years now. And so, I think at some point you realize that you start becoming an American and that your life is here, and all of a sudden you're celebrating Thanksgiving, which for the longest time I thought was a Catholic saint I had never heard of. I thought it was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, King of Thanksgiving. What's his feast day? And I mean, this is, I will fight anybody to the death about my love for this country, and that's why things like Dream Act Kids strike me so closely, and I get emotional about, because I know that when you come here as an 8-year-old, it's not your decision, it's somebody else's decision, and it took a while for me to be able to become a U.S. citizen. And it was a big deal for me. I really wanted to vote. I still can't understand people who are U.S. citizens and don't vote, because I think it's such a right and such a responsibility and such a privilege. And I think it's enough time that so many people have been using those Dream Act Kids as political wedge issues and for political gain, and keeping them in limbo. They're living in distress and with fear that they're going to be kicked out of the only country they know. So anyways, I came here at 8, and 41 years I am still here. And I think that when you go through a civil war as a child, when you flee political repression, when you really live in a place like Miami, which is very political in that we have constant influxes of immigrants fleeing, right? Whether it's Cubans or Venezuelans or Haitians or Nicaraguans, I think you go one of two ways when politics and revolution and violence has been such a part of your childhood. You either, go into a hippie commune and plant cannabis and crochet and want nothing to do with politics, or you really want to be involved and engaged because you feel this weight on your shoulders that democracy matters and that you just can't let it happen. You've got to be part of it. So obviously, I chose the latter, though I still reserve my right to be in a hippie commune growing cannabis. And it's really shaped my life. So my childhood shaped so much of my views on immigration, because I am an immigrant. My views on politics, because you don't take democracy for granted. You don't, you've got to defend it. You've got to defend it vigorously. It's why January 6th, the events of January 6th, were so horrific for me, because that's the kind of stuff that happens in Caracas or in North Korea or in Managua, but that's not what happens in Washington, D.C. That's not what happens in America, and that's not what we project. It's not, the world was looking at what was happening here, and I think we were all looking at it aghast at the idea that American democracy and the symbol of American democracy could be breached and violated in that way. And it's why it's so important for me that we get to the bottom of what happened, who was involved, who was behind it, who was responsible. And I tell people, I've become like a single issue voter. The only issue I care about right now is the truth. I'm sick of people who lie about COVID. I'm sick of people who lie about voting. I'm sick of people who lie about race. I'm sick of people who lie about January 6th. I mean, I don't think it's too much to ask for a little truthfulness from folks who want to represent us. Man, you asked me a question and I went on for like 20 minutes.
No, it's okay.
Then again, you guys are represented by Joe Biden, so you're used to people going on and on. I love him.
I definitely want to take a moment to bring it back for the youth who you encourage. What words would you share with those, the younger generation who's really walking in your shoes right now and have fear or anxiety and don't really know how to navigate the path that you've successfully been able to come through?
You mean career-wise or what?
Well, just as a Latina, career-wise?
Look, I think that when you're young, it's really important to figure out what matters to you and what you believe in, because undoubtedly you're going to be challenged in your life. And so when those challenges come, you can only stand up for what you believe in. It's not easy to stand up for stuff you don't believe in. I think that for the youth, it's important to know that you gotta work hard, you know? Unless unless you're Rockefeller or something, it's not gonna, unless you have a famous family or you have a trust fund, it's not gonna come easy. And so you've got to work very, very hard and always be prepared. And I'd say to the youth, to a lot of times, young people in colleges ask me, how do you get on TV? Or how do you get into politics? You know, I think a lot of times people get a little too rigid with the idea of what's the shortest line between point A and point B. Okay, how do I get to host The View? Well, it ain't that easy, and it's not that straight a line. And so sometimes people are so focused on getting somewhere directly and as short a time as possible that they miss the detours life has. I went to law school. It would have never occurred to me that I would be doing what I'm doing now. And I'd also tell young people and all people, know your value, because believe me, people will work you for free for as long as they can. So at some point, you've got to trust in yourself and you've got to ask for what you think you're worth.
Yes. And then also, in the transition into getting into politics, how or what would you say helped you to get your big break?
I got into politics as a kid, volunteering in campaigns and local campaigns, door knocking, making phone calls. Like, remember back when there were phones? Doing things, licking envelopes and doing things like that, going to events, working events as a volunteer, and worked a lot in local campaigns and state campaigns, federal campaigns. I tell you, my big break was the John McCain campaign. I was John's National Hispanic Chair in 2008, and I had done a lot of local press, but John's campaign brought me to the national press. And after, I was a surrogate for him all over the country, and I was a surrogate for him on mainstream media press, CNN and other outlets. And after he lost, they kept calling, and they kept putting me on the air. And one day I said, well, this is really kind of flattering to be on TV and all that. Get false eyelashes put on, that's kind of cool. It's a skill that I still cannot do by myself. But it's taking up my time. And I'm paying gas, and somebody's got to pay me to do this. And to my shock, they did. And so, so it's what I tell you about being aware of the opportunities that are out there. And it's perhaps outside of your comfort zone. And it's perhaps taking a risk and something that, you didn't think you would be doing, but it leads to things.
And are there any experiences that you had during that journey that you could share with us that really helped to shape not only your views in politics, but who you are today? My views on politics. Like John McCain for me was a mentor and a hero and a friend. I loved how
he was, he managed to stay himself um, through through so much, right? Through becoming a national leader and all of that, but he pretty much stayed pretty true to himself. John McCain behind closed doors and John McCain in private was very much the same John McCain you'd see on TV. I could tell you about traveling with Palin, but I've gone to therapy to forget. Del carajo.
Now, we've seen a lot of talk in regards to being loyal to Republican Party and being loyal to the Democratic Party. What is your view on that?
Well, look, I used to be a lot more regimented on it, frankly, and I used to vote Republican up and down the line, and then and then Donald Trump happened, and there's just some bridges I'm not willing to cross, right? There's just not, and so I do think that it's important to. I mean, you've got to have like I don't know, like what, like a floor of what you expect from your elected officials. And for me, that floor includes not boasting about sexually harassing women and not making fun of somebody with a disability and not making fun of Rosie O'Donnell because, because of what she looks like and not demeaning a judge because he was Mexican, as he called him, Judge Curiel. So for me, those are, and not calling John McCain a loser because he got captured when you didn't serve because you made up a story about bone spurs, right? And your rich daddy was able to get you out of it, while John McCain was in political prison for 5. So no, you don't get to call him a loser and still have my vote. And you don't get to boast about grabbing a woman and still have my vote. And you don't get to make fun of a disabled person. I have a disabled brother. I have a brother who's severely disabled. And I remember as a kid, growing up, he makes gestures and he makes noises. And I remember, whenever we were in public with him, little kids would stare at him and sometimes mimic him, and it would hurt me so much. Now, the idea that a grown-ass man wanting to lead the free country, the free world, is going to be doing this kind of thing. Who behaves like that? Who behaves like that? What sane person behaves like that? So again, you got to have a floor. You got to have a floor that goes beyond partisanship and beyond partisan labels. And for me, having a good, decent heart is one of those, requirements. You can disagree. You can disagree on policy, certainly. You can disagree on ideology. You don't have to be in 100% agreement. They don't, I'm to the point where literally they don't even have to be eloquent. They can just stand there and grunt as long as they're not, as long as I don't think they are bad people with dark hearts.
And on the topic of having the floor, you've had the floor many times in an industry that is dominated by men. And when you talk about these topics like immigration and other topics that they're very opposed of, what admires me is that you really keep your stance. You don't change who you are. You don't change your viewpoints. If you have something you want to say it, you say it the way you want to say it, and you don't censor yourself. So share with us what it is about being authentic in this world that we live in this industry where many people can lose their authenticity, but you really stay true to yourself when it comes to being a woman and a minority woman in the political world.
Part of that came from, first being inauthentic takes a lot of work, and you forget what your last thing you were pretending to care about was, right? When you're making it up, you got to keep it straight, and that takes remembering and work. So it's easier to be authentic. It takes less work to be authentic. Also, at one point, I was a fellow at the Harvard Institute of Politics, and a lot of Latino kids, who were going to Harvard would come up to me, and I had office hours, and they would sign up to see me, which was kind of scary because the idea that I was now so old that people were asking me for advice still blows my mind. But you realize at some point that you're more than you, right? That you represent. And I tell people, look, I hope we get to the point where a black person, a woman, a Latina, an LGBTQ person, that gets to have a platform doesn't feel the weight, the duty of having to represent. But we're not there. We're not there. And so it's so touching, it's so humbling, it's so grounding when I get stopped at an airport, when I get stopped at a supermarket, and somebody says, well, first of all, now I'm like, are you vaccinated? But when somebody says, that how much it means to them to see somebody that looks like them on TV, and I can tell you how much it means to me to see somebody like Sonia Sotomayor on the Supreme Court. It just when I saw that image earlier this year of the swearing in, and Sonia Sotomayor swearing in the first female vice president, also child of immigrants, and black, Southeastern Asian. It was so significant, and the idea that, really, I'm about to turn. Oh shit. No quiero. I don't want to embrace it. I'm about to turn 50 in December. We had Drew Carey on The View yesterday because The Price is Right is celebrating 50 seasons. Oh my God, I'm as old as Bob Barker now. But anyways, when I was growing up, there were no, when I first came to this country, when I was growing up, when I was watching TV, there were no Hispanic women on national TV. There were no, there was nobody that looked like Kamala or looked like, I'm sorry, Madame Vice President, or that looked like Justice Sotomayor that I could look up to. And so I love the idea that a little girl no longer has to ask, can a woman run for president? Because we've seen that they can.
And with that, what direction would you give anyone in regards to actually taking a role in politics, if it's being a council member, or if it's running for office in your state or in your district, or being a legislative assistant? How important is it to not only talk about politics at home, but also get involved?
Well, look, it's not for everyone, right? But if it's something that you're passionate about, and that you want to be part of, you certainly should. And I think there's so many ways to do it these days. Sometimes people mock things like social media campaigns. But I tell you what, if it wasn't for that social media campaign, Britney Spears would still have a conservatorship run by her dad. And so there are things that where I think the collective outrage and the collective activism make a difference. So I think I think it's so important. Like you told me how to start. Look, for me, the first and foremost, people need to make sure that they are consuming true news. The damage that falsehoods and fake news is doing to America and to people's brains, I think is unmeasurable. The idea, and it's something that I think is our responsibility as consumers of news. We've got to know what outlets we're reading, what journalists we're reading, that not everything you read just because it's on the internet is true. And it's up to us. People always say, well, people ask me this a lot. You know, how do we fight fake news? Really, it's like I can't help you. Like, if you want to believe that Bill and Hillary Clinton are running a sex ring from the basement of a pizza shop that doesn't have a basement, I can't help you, right? So you've gotta have that responsibility within yourself of saying, I'm going to make sure that what I'm consuming is true, because that truth that you're consuming is going to form the basis of what you care about, right? So I care about climate change. I care about gun rights. I care about gun control. I care about voting rights. And then you can, being involved in politics doesn't only mean running, but I think it's great to see people running, particularly people who aren't entrenched politicians. But it also means being involved in issues and being involved in causes and being involved in getting people to vote, getting people to register, getting people to understand the importance of being part of the system and not sitting it out.
And let's spend a moment on that topic, the importance of not only voting, but you and I earlier spoke about the census and how it's important to really fill that document out, because now states across the country are going through the redistricting process, and knowing the numbers of Hispanics and African Americans that live in certain districts, it matters. And so what is your viewpoint on that?
Well, it's gonna be 10 years before we gotta fill out another one, so, and because some people didn't fill it out, there were states like New York that lost congressional districts by single digits, by 100 people. 100 people that maybe didn't fill out the census, and that means that now that district's going to Texas. God help us all.
And into transitioning into The View, how did you go from politics to pop culture? How was that transition for you? Was there something about The View that appealed you, that you wanted to go ahead and take that opportunity to be a host? Talk to us about the transition.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I've transitioned, because the pop culture is hard for me. Like, I don't watch much beside news and like reality TV. That's like my thing. And the reason I like it is because the people on reality TV are so crazy that they make me feel totally normal, right? No matter how dysfunctional my life is, the Real Housewives of New Jersey are crazy. So I look, the View. I mean, look, The View is great, right? You're getting to share your opinions with women of a diverse background, diverse ages, and people. I mean, where else can I sit with an EGOT, right? Like Whoopi Goldberg, and shoot the breeze about important issues of the day. I mean, it's like I still think, I always say to the folks on The View, it is the best gig on TV. You're hanging out with, some very smart women, some more sane than others at times, who and you're getting to share your opinion and national, on national TV. Well, I mean.
And you are really sitting at the table with influential women. Talk to us a little bit about. Yes, talk to us a little bit about.
I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted.
We all noticed that.
Man, is that a protest out there? They do that, now that, like, they use music as a thing. Like, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, you're old enough for this, but when Noriega, the Panamanian dictator, when he hid in the Vatican embassy or something, and so they piped in rock music, which he hated, to as a form of extracting him out of there. And then I just heard on the music front that in one of these, the newest tell-all book by one of the former Trumpies, She says that they used to pipe in music into the Oval Office to calm his nerves, right? And that he liked to hear the show tunes, that he liked memories. I'll volunteer to go to Mar-a-Lago and sing for him. Farewell, so long. But anyways, I really have no idea what the hell you asked me. None. I'm trying. I'm like talking and talking, hoping that it'll come back to me. Zero.
Perfectly okay. We were talking about your co-hosts and being on The View and how influential they are. And so the next question I was going to ask, what could you share with us that you are actually able to gain from that experience that really doesn't happen when we see the cameras on? Are there any conversations, any women empowerment building? Like, what does that look like, what we don't actually get to see?
Oh, those conversations during the breaks are so good because we, look, one of the things that you don't see that I think is really neat and unique to The View is we have these meetings in the morning to go through potential hot topics that we're going to discuss. So we get the hot topic packet in the night before, and everybody says kind of what they're interested in. And you've got different points of view and different people with different passions and different priorities, piping in and opining. And then in the morning, we go through the ones we picked and we narrow it down to what we're going to talk about. And so it's those meetings that you don't see are great because you're hearing the different, you're hearing people pitch what they want. Sometimes we're in agreement and sometimes we're not in agreement.
And what would you say to certain viewers who don't believe The View is influential and is more of an argumental show? What about those people who watch and have opposing views? How could you, or what would you say to them that would say, this is definitely influential and this is hot topics that you're going to gain beneficial information from?
If you don't like it, don't watch it. There's a bunch of stuff to watch.
Right. And how are you able to blend politics on the show?
What do you mean?
So from your experience and your background in the political field, what are you able to bring to The View?
My perspective, my opinion, my, how I authentically feel about something. My experience as an immigrant, right? When I see things like what's happening in the southern border right now, look, I know what it's like to have to, to flee your country and seek freedom and better opportunities. So, I think, what you bring is who you are and your life's experiences. That's what we all bring to life, right? We all are who we are, plus our circumstances and our experience.
And you're very vocal and you advocate for minorities. What could you share with us in your opinion piece that you wrote on how not to be racist, since that's been a prominent topic for so many years, but I feel like the pandemic kind of pushed that to the forefront in the media and in the community since we were all staying at home.
Remind me what I said? That was a while ago. No, look, I think how not to be racist. You've got to really, you've got to really, I think, be a little bit introspective. And by the way, black people and brown people and, minority people can be racist too. We know that. It's because when you look at other people differently and like they are lesser than, that's racism. Look, how not to be racist. I think that you've got to acknowledge some of the personal biases. I think it's important to get out of your comfort zone and listen to people that may not look like you or have the same experiences as you, because then when you hear about these things, they're not foreign. I remember when the Trayvon Martin case happened in Florida, and I don't know if you all remember that then President Obama gave a speech, a big race speech, and he talked about walking in the streets and women locking their cars when they would see him approach, and he talked about having the talk, how African American families have to have the talk with their 13, 14-year-olds about how to interact with police. And I had friends who said, oh, there he goes again, as usual, always pulling up the race card. And they were friends who didn't have black friends and who didn't know, no, he's actually not making it up. This is actually true. Because whether you're rich or poor, whether you're famous or not, whether you are, whether you are Caribbean or you were brought here, your family was brought here through slavery, it's about the color of your skin for some people. And how not to be racist? Judge people by the content of their character.
Right.
Martin Luther told us what we had to do.
Right. And on the topic of race, you did some social media posts in regards to the Gabby Petito case and how it garnered so much media attention, but we have so many minorities who go missing every day. So share with us, being in the media, being such an influential person, the importance of having that type of coverage equally for the minorities as well, and how could that change? Do you know anything from being in the inside that could actually work?
Well, I think it changes by bringing attention to it, and by people who look like you, but by all of us, saying, look, I don't want to take 1 ounce of energy or attention away from the Gabby Petito case. I just want the same level of attention and energy devoted to the Native American women who are missing, who nobody says a word about. Right. The African American transgenders who are missing, who nobody says a word about. The Latinas, the black women. I just want the same. I want there to be the same attention. I don't resent the attention that Gabby Petito is getting. Mm-hmm. I resent that other people are not getting the same level of attention.
That's right. And in regards to attention, what could you share with us when it comes to, how can I say, it is Hispanic Heritage Month, but Hispanic Heritage Month is so encompassing, right? It's universal, it's not just one ethnicity. And
I love Hispanic Heritage Month. I love it so much because I feel I'm entitled to drink margaritas daily.
But, in order to incorporate the heritage and just our background, everything that we bring to this country, what can you share with us in regards to you growing up in America from another country? And what could you share? I know there's a lot of youth who go through a transition when they don't know, so am I Latina? My parents are from another country, but I don't really have that experience. Most of my life I've been here in the US. So they come up with an identity crisis. They don't really know how to identify. What could you share with us in regards to that perspective when it comes to Latin American people?
Oh gosh, I think everybody needs to figure out for themselves who they are, right? And not let external forces be the ones that define you for you, right? Not the people discriminating against you, not the bullies, not the world wanting to put a label. I think we all need to kind of be just comfortable in our skins and who we are, and embrace it. Not the 50-year-old part, but the other parts. When I first got on national TV and social media had become a thing, Twitter and all of that, and I would get tweets from people who liked me, who'd tweet me about my sexy Latina accent, and I would get tweets from people who didn't like me, who'd tell me to go eat another burrito and go back to Mexico. Turns out bigotry and ignorance are very related. So people who don't like Hispanics and immigrants think that we all come from Mexico. And by the way, burritos are not served in Mexico. You could probably go to jail if you ask for a burrito in Mexico. It's a Tex-Mex thing. But so the ones who like me would talk about my sexy Latina accent. The ones who didn't would would tell me to go back to Mexico. And I was with I've spent 15 years with a guy from Idaho, and I came home one night and I said, "Honey, do I have an accent?" Why are you all laughing? That's exactly what he did. He laughed. And I had no idea I have an accent. I mean, I'm from Miami. Have you guys heard how Pitbull speaks? Have you guys heard Emilio Estefan? Really, this is as good as it gets. And so so okay. So I have an accent. Is that gonna keep me from being on TV? No. It's even though I do laugh because sometimes I see, like, on social media posts that they put subtitles under what I'm saying, and I'm like, really? Is it that bad? So I just, look, I mean, whatever. You just, you've got to be comfortable with who you are, whether it's, and what you are, and you've got to know that for yourself. So I had, you guys know who Skip Gates is, Henry Louis Gates? Mm-hmm. So he emails me a few years ago and asks if he could do a show on, that finding your roots. So he sends me this really long questionnaire and asking all sorts of things, and I fill it out. I don't hear a word from them for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I turn around to my husband and I say, oh, hell, I think I just gave all my information to the Russians. And I email Skip and I say, you're not the Russians, are you? And so anyways, I did the show, and my dad's obsessed with genealogy. And like every Latin with 2 dimes to rub together, he thinks he is a direct descendant of Spanish royalty. So he came all the way up from Nicaragua to the taping of this, the revealing of what I was and who I descended, because he was sure there was like a marquis or a Spanish duke or something in our background. And it's like, please turn the page, and I descend from an African slave in Costa Rica. And over there, I see you laugh. And we're taping this, right? And my father's on the other side of the curtain, and he's got a little thing in his ear, and his English is not all that good, but please turn the page, and there is my great-great-grandfather, the freed African slave from Costa Rica, and I hear my father go, ¿Qué? So we had to stop the taping because my father was like, ¿Qué dijo? So I think sometimes we get caught up too much on labels and this and that, and look, man, I bet you that most people, if they do that ancestry test, would find stuff that they didn't know about, except Donald Trump. He's not one of us. He ain't black, he ain't Latino, that I can assure you.
And for not so serious question real quick, I do want to bring this one to your attention. We are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and my question is going to be in regards to if we were living in the world of Anna, how we would celebrate that. But I do want to bring attention to our Councilwoman Maria Cabrera, who is a 2-time elected first Hispanic woman on Wilmington
Congratulations.
City Council. And our President and CEO of the Latin American Community Center, El Santo Latino, Maria Matos, is here.
Thank you for being here.
And they do tremendous work when it comes to making sure that not only do Hispanic Americans, Hispanics in general, our underserved population, has programs and services that reach out to them or have some type of representation, and actually in the educational system as well. If this was the Anna Navarro world, what would you add or change in regards to how our country celebrates Hispanic Heritage Month?
I don't think anything should be a 1-month celebration. I don't think it should be Black History Month in February. I don't think it should be Hispanic Heritage Month. You'll notice we start in the middle of September and we go through them because we always get there late. I just, so I'm glad these months to highlight, certain things and national whatever days exist. I love National Avocado Day. I love, things like that. But I think we have to be more conscientious or more cognizant of it year round, not just for 1 month. But I do think it's important to take, to maybe have, like, when you have the baking soda in your refrigerator and you have the date that reminds you have to change it. So I do think it's
We have to change the date. No
Okay.
expiration date.
I think it's important to have that date to like say, you know what, I'm going to use this month. Okay, hell, it's Hispanic Heritage Month. It's all over the place, right? I'm going to use this month to read some Hispanic authors. I'm going to, to find out about some Hispanic pioneers and some Hispanic, folks who, inventors. And I'm going to find, I'm going to look up a, margarita recipe. And learn how to, I'll learn how to make arroz con gandules. So maybe, maybe just be a little bit more aware and use this month when they're hitting you every day con la cosa. I call it Hispanic Hysteria Month because it's like, how many more things can I possibly, so I used to complain about all the Hispanic heritage parties I had to go to. And I haven't gone in 2 years because there have been no damn parties. And now I'm like, I want a party. I want a party, and I want a party now. So I think, use it as an opportunity to be more conscious and learn new things. And on The View, like on Black History Month, we do a little vignette where we hope to teach people about somebody that they may not know about. We do the same thing for Hispanic Heritage Month. I think this week it might be Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of Education, right? And so I think it's important to go watch West Side Story, watch In the Heights.
Okay, so thank you, Oye Delaware, for being here as well. I do want to give this, documenting tonight. I do want to give this opportunity, since so many of you came out to speak with Anna, I want to give the floor to you. So anyone who has a question, please raise your hand, and we'll have someone come to you with the mic.
I just want to report what the GDP for Latinos in this country is over $3 billion. But we don't hear that often. What's your impression on that? We talk about, the bad things or the immigrants or the border, but 3-point-some billion in the GDP. Yeah, I think it's important to highlight the good, right? To highlight the Latino scientists who've been part of inventing, creating these vaccines, to highlight the people that have done good, and I think that's part of our story that doesn't get told enough. Too often when you see Latinos in movies, when you see Latinos in the media, when you see, it's always the criminal or the gangster or the immigrant or that. I mean, there's very good things, and it's just, look, whether people like it or not, we're here. The good news is we come in peace. We're here, we're part of this country, we're part of the diversity and of the richness of this country, and we contribute in so many different ways.
Good evening, Anna.
Good evening.
So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Far as the voting goes, the voting registration and stuff like that, do you think we're gonna get swallowed up? I mean, it's scary. You know that they're trying to take our votes away. It's terrifying. Do you think that we're gonna get an even shake next go around?
I don't know. I think we're yet to see what the effects of some of these laws that have been passed in different states are going to be. There are states that have made it more difficult and that have put a lot of new requirements that you've got to meet in order to do it. And so I think one of two things is going to happen. Either people are not going to do it, or people are going to use this obvious attempt to limit the vote, particularly from minority communities, to get mad and get outraged and channel that by saying, you know what, you want me to count jelly beans? Okay, I'll count jelly beans. You want me to re-register here and, change that and whatever, we're gonna do it. And so my hope is that it's the second, but it's not gonna happen by itself, right? And it's gotta start now. It's gotta start now. And so my hope is that, look, there's some legal challenges to some of these laws around the state, but we've gotta be two-tracked about it. So yes, support the legal challenges and wait to see what happens with that, but at the same time, start getting people to register regardless of the new requirements. Like in Florida, where I live, you now have to re-register all the time, much more frequently, to be able to vote absentee. And so we gotta get people to do that. Right? But you're right, and it's something we've gotta start now.
Good evening. I have thoroughly enjoyed you, and I'm going to tell you why. I've been black a long time. Long time. Okay. And what I admire about you is the fact that you can talk about things that do hurt. They're not pleasant. Some things are. But we have got to learn to laugh at ourselves, and we've got to learn to laugh through things in order to get through things. And what I wanted to ask you was, have you ever thought about, and I'm serious about this, doing a regular newscast on a daily or an every evening kind of newscast and help people to see news in the way that you just delivered it? To talk about it, laugh about it, stop being so friggin' serious. None of us are going to be here forever. And you would have I'm telling you, I'll bet you everybody in here would tune in if we knew that you were coming on that news to really tell the true story and say, okay, y'all, this is what it is. And some of those totally interesting ways that you put stuff, it's hilarious. And I appreciate your laughter.
Well, for me, having a sense of humor is a coping mechanism, right? I mean, right along with chocolate cake. Because really, life can be very hard and can throw a lot of challenges at you. And so, to me, being able to laugh at some of the insanity and ridiculousness, like I'll give you an example because I just can't help myself. You all have the most wicked laughs. But, last week we had a little brouhaha. You can ask, I'm not gonna go into details, you can ask me, but then, where people thought we had COVID. And Donald Trump Jr. said, well, now, given the Ana Navarro news, let's have a conversation about COVID and obesity. I'm like, really, child? Really? Really? I mean, what I said on The View, and it's true, it's like, honey, I'm so glad, yes, let's have the conversation about COVID and obesity. Because your obese father, whose ass is the size of a small apartment in New Jersey, actually had COVID and ended up in the hospital, right? And so, I mean, to me, that's actually funny. I mean, it's like funny that whose fat father got COVID and ended up in the hospital getting all sorts of treatment that the rest of us couldn't get at the time, has the gall to try to fat shame me. I'm like, don't come for me. Go ahead, ask me what you were going to ask me.
How are you? Thank you so much for joining us here in Wilmington. I would like to say, as a frequent audience guest on The View, I was totally shocked in the way things were done on last Friday.
Me too.
And it bothers me in the trust factor that you're supposed to have with these people who did that. How can you still sit there? It just bothers me tremendously because I've been in the audience before and I know what all goes on prior to, and then you as a host were treated in that way.
Look, I think it was, first of all, I don't think it was intentional. I think it was, and I think it's a reminder, that COVID is still here and that we all still have to be careful and be cognizant of it. I think there were mistakes made, certainly, but it's a great team at the View. They had worked really hard. We all worked really hard to get that interview and to get it right. We'd worked on the questions, and it's a team effort. There were so many people that worked so hard, also from the Vice President's office. It was really awkward. It was embarrassing. It was unfortunate because I think that interview is going to be very important for the Vice President and for us. And I had things I wanted to ask her. But look, when you know people and when there's people, these are people who try to make us look good every day. So, I'm capable of having a little grace. But we fired the lab, and so it's, look, there's deep dives going on about what went wrong and how that all happened. It was the damnedest thing. It was, so, and I get there, so this happens, and I had literally spent the day, just 2 days before, with Kamala's sister, Kamala's brother-in-law, and Kamala's niece, Maya, Tony, and Mina, at a funeral. But the whole day, we're together the whole day. And then, I find this out, and I'm like, oh, geez, I'm gonna wipe out the Harris family. I'm Typhoid Mary, just targeting the Harris family in 1 week. This is bad. But anyways, look, I think it's certainly a learning experience. There were things that went wrong that I assure you will not go wrong again. We're now getting tested and tested and tested and tested, get tested daily. And it really was unfortunate because the show takes so many measures and does so much to try to keep safe. And now those efforts are, we are redoubling those. I mean, my nostrils are going to file a sexual harassment suit any moment.
For visiting us on the first date. Do you see a time in your crystal ball when our political world will be less vitriolic?
I have to tell you, and I don't know if you agree, but you asked me the question and I'm thinking about it. I think it's less vitriolic today than it was a year ago, right? And a lot of that, frankly, is Joe Biden, who stubbornly has sought bipartisanship and not to vilify and demonize, not to look at his opponents as enemies, but to look at them, and remind us, all of us, over and over again, that above and beyond anything, we are American. So I do think it's less vitriolic today, and I do think leadership from the top matters. It's less vitriolic today because, you don't have a president who's saying things that would happen in Charlottesville. There were good people on both sides. It's less vitriolic because you don't have a president who's calling countries like Haiti or, countries in Africa shitholes. It's less vitriolic because I think, there is a president who has set a bar of higher level of civility and respect. And I think it's hard. It's hard to do when they're coming at you over and over and over again. And so will it be less vitriolic? Look, things happen in life often and in history on a pendulum. I think they got really as bad as they, hopefully as bad as they're going to get last year and then the, 4 years previous to that. And I hope that there comes a time when really the young people, I think, my generation and those older have kind of screwed it up, but where the young people shed some of these labels and some of these niches that people want to put themselves into, and just look at issues and look at things, but don't, that doesn't mean it defines our relationship. That we disagree does not mean that, that you're my enemy.
One question that I wanted to ask was specifically with immigration policy, is there a way to return our public discourse to make sure that the issues that we talk about are human issues? Like with immigration, a lot of individuals refer to it as a national security issue, when I think more at the heart of every issue, there are human beings that are being affected by all the problems that affect our country and our city. So is there a way to return that to how do we help those in need with the problems they face as opposed to us against them?
Look, often every issue, every ideological issue, every policy, political issue is more nuanced than what some want to project it as, or or what the language and the rhetoric surrounding it sometimes portrays. To me, the truth is that there is a law enforcement, national security component to immigration, right? Every country has a right to have a border and to defend that border and to enforce their laws. But there also has to be a level of compassion and a level of acknowledging that we are a country of immigrants, and that immigration has been good for our country, and that but for a very few of us, the rest, but for Native Americans and African Americans whose ancestors were brought here by slavery, the rest of us are immigrants. So we've got to keep reminding ourselves of that. I think this immigration issue is incredibly complicated, and we saw in the past bipartisan efforts, John McCain and Ted Kennedy trying to get it done. And I think it's a national shame that it's been decades and decades and decades, and it's still going on. And I do think that it's because politicians like to exploit the issue for political gain. And it gets harder and harder to solve when people see things as either just one thing or the other. I say to some of my friends who'll tell me while they sip on their wine, and nibble on cheese, how immigration is so bad. I said, well, I'd like to see you go pick those grapes and milk those cows. Let's give somebody.
Along those lines.
We've got Senator Klobuchar tomorrow. But I think after last Friday, she's like, I'm doing remote, ladies.
Along those same lines, because I wanted to talk about the topic of immigration, so you hit the nail on the head and you answered as well part of the question. So the second part is, we realize that this is all going on. The immigration system is broken. The monies aren't being put into it. I'm constantly being asked, what do you think of the situation in the border, as if I'm supposed to speak badly about it. I always tell them I think we need to put the resources into the legalization and for people to be able to come in here and get processed, which we know it hasn't happened. It is our laws that we allow people who choose, who seek asylum. So my second part of this would be is, how do we, as a nation, how do we get the message out there, as you did at that dinner party while they were nibbling on cheese and wine, that the contributions, not just now but before, but because it's a hot topic now, and it's really about the Latinos now. We don't talk about the other people that are coming in here illegally.
No, it's about the Haitians too.
Well, the Haitians now, but I'm just saying we don't talk about the ones who, have the fairer skins and come in through Canada. How do we educate the community about the contributions? And it can't just be 1 month of Hispanic Heritage Month. And instead of making these people seem so evil, like they're coming to take from us, when they don't even get benefits when they come here, they have to struggle so hard for everything they get. How are they taxing our system when they're really contributing and doing the jobs that no one else is doing? How can we do a better job to get that message out there?
Look, I think it's the same question you asked. I think it's about highlighting contributions and highlighting the positives. I also think we have to look at immigration and think of immigration in a comprehensive way. And that includes things like, what's the magnet and why are people coming here and what can we do to address some of those root causes? Look, nobody wants to leave their country. Nobody wants to leave their family. Nobody wants to leave their traditions, their infrastructure, their family structures, their friends, their home behind. It's an act for most people, it's an act of desperation. But I know it's complicated because I know that if we say, okay, we're going to let in every Central American, we're going to let in every Haitian, there's not going to be a Central American left in Central America, other than the Ortegas, who for some reason can't leave Nicaragua. And so, we have to look at it comprehensively. How do we, first of all, absorb, for me, first and foremost, the dreamers. Damn it, these kids came here. They are American in every way but one. They love this country. They came here through no fault of their own. Can we please have a little compassion? Can we stop this constant up and down of offering and not delivering? We need to take care of the dreamers, and we need to take care of the ones that are here. There's 11 undocumented immigrants, a lot of them who have homes. Some have businesses. Some have citizen children or citizen spouses. Some, that are already here. And then we've got the border crisis. And then we've got, look, we are America, and people look at us as the land of opportunity still. I always ask myself, where is the rest of the world? Like when we see what's happening now on the border with Haitians and with Central Americans, where is the rest of the world in saying, we're going to step up and we're going to have UN refugee camps, send us some of these people that that are fleeing that kind of oppression and need, and we will help. It's a very complicated issue, which is why it hasn't gotten solved. But I think we have to, as voters, we have to demand that Congress get off its ass and pass some legislation once and for all.
I always enjoy you on the show. And in fact, if I record it, and if you're not on, I don't watch it. That's how much I enjoy seeing the show. My question is
Did
this.
you watch today's show?
Not yet. I have it on record.
Okay.
But I enjoyed your comment about New Jersey because I'm originally from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it last week? My question is this. With everything that's happening, especially in terms
By
of...
the way, I wasn't picking on New Jersey. I was picking on Donald Trump's ass.
I know, but you can pick on New Jersey. I don't care.
Okay, so...
Sometimes it deserves to be picked on.
I apologize to New Jersey for making that comparison.
Anyway, what's happening now with voting rights especially? I kept seeing the Supreme Court becoming more and more and more ultra-conservative with people who do not, as far as I'm concerned, belong on the Supreme Court. I believe we have one should be convicted rapist currently serving. That's my viewpoint. I see what's happening with voting rights, which I was depending on voting to change things. I'm wondering now, do you think it's time to expand the Supreme Court?
I'm a traditionalist on that. I'm an institutionalist. I'm kind of in the same boat as Joe Biden in that. Look, I don't think, I think when you see the makeup of the Supreme Court and the decisions that are coming out, it should be a very poignant, constant reminder to all of us that elections have consequences and elections matter. And so all those people that voted for Donald Trump and didn't vote for Hillary because of her emails or whatever, and now are concerned about the decisions coming. And it's not just the Supreme Court. One of the things that the Republican Senate did very effectively, and Republicans did very effectively, is pack all the courts, all the federal courts. There were thousands named. And I had Republican friends who would tell me that they thought, Donald Trump was immoral and unfit and all of those things, but the courts, but the courts. And they, you know, they were very focused on that, and it's something that's going to affect us for generations. I don't think you're going to get legislation to expand the court through, I mean, can't even get infrastructure. You know, you can't even get police reform. You know, which is a shame. It is a shame that after what, you know, it is a shame that people who sat with George Floyd's daughter and promised change, the little, you know, 6-year-old, have turned their back on that issue. So you know, let's be realistic. We're not getting an expansion of the Supreme Court. We're stuck with what we have, and if we want to change it, it's only going to be through elections.
Yesenia, Ms. Navarro, it's been an honor.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming here.
Thank
Hold
you
on,
all for coming tonight.
first.
This
I'm gonna-
concludes our
Wait,
program.
don't leave. I'm going to take a selfie of us all. Hold on.